Hello, Global Theater. My name is Gerry Fialka. Today's November 23, 2025. Want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Also want to thank James Joyce for introducing me to today's guest, Luke Hall. Where are you calling from, Luke?
I'm calling from Brooklyn, New York.
How cool is that? First question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
Well, I would say, following in line with classical philosophy, it's the good. And in Aristotelian terms, specifically eudaimonia, which involves, rational action. We as human beings, we are ultimately animals, as all of modern thought affirms. But at the same time, there's an element to us that is um, unique to human beings, and that is the intellect. So your happiness or your unhappiness in your life is determined by the way that you act in that respect. And the good for human beings is to act in that respect.
Very good. What's your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
Sound, without a doubt. I think especially for poets, there's always been an ancient association between the ear, as Joyce says at one point in Finnegan's Wake, bull's ear instead of bull's eye. Um, Sound,
Wait, is it two words in the wake or one word?
I believe it's one word, just like bullseye, it's bull's ear.
Oh, bold, not bold. I thought you said bold. You
No,
mean
no, bull's ear, like bull's eye, like the sky.
Bull's ear
Yeah.
instead of bull's eye.
Yes. Yes. That's something, and that's something I've always loved. Music. Like Joyce himself, I've always had a preference for the musical over the pictorial. So certainly, sound is my answer to that.
Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
That I don't know. I would say all I would say to that is that we can't help it.
Yeah. And I appreciate you saying I don't know. I can't answer that question. I'm for tangents, stories, anecdotes. You don't
Yeah.
have to answer the question. In other words, is this need or want to
Mhm.
collect information more innate or more invented?
I would say it's innate, but one of the things that's particular about human beings is that what is innate about us is our knack for inventing things.
Yeah.
So, our technical skills is sort of what makes us unique as human beings. So the two things kind of come together. That might seem like a cop out, but I think that's the real answer.
Not a cop out at all, man. I like cop outs, by the way. You can cop out. You can cop out the whole interview if you want. But that's funny, knack to invent, because McLuhan has this great line where he says, "Technology is the most human thing."
Right,
So
right.
you're saying the knack. That word is knack is funny. The knack to invent. Yeah, are we hardwired to invent? Can't we just sit there and not invent anything?
Right, right, right.
Yeah, like why do we have to invent shit?
Yeah.
Anyways, do thoughts create emotions?
Do thoughts create emotions? Yes, they do. I think they generate emotions, and that can actually be, a very powerful tool because a lot of the times, it goes the other way as well. Your emotions can generate thoughts,
Yeah.
but I think it's a matter of which handlebars you grab onto, if you know what I mean.
It's good because it's me and you versus the wording on the question. So I appreciate when people actually change or substitute a word instead of create, you put generate. So really good. Fill in the blank, Luke. I don't know what I think until I
Live.
Yeah, Louis Buñuel said, "Long live the living." That was
Yeah.
cool. I never get that. Live, because McLuhan says, "I don't know what I think until I say it." Joan
Hmm.
Didion says, "I don't know what I think until I write it."
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. Chomsky says language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what
Hmm.
a community is. What do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
Well, I mean, in the context of this interview, I think that's a very easy answer. You read the Finnegan's Wake.
Yeah, that's pretty dang good. That's amazing. Very good. Can humans think without language?
That is a question. I don't think we can. No, no.
Yeah, amazing. Your observations of humans in general, are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
I think we're more thinking beings, but the special part of human beings is the way in which our feeling and our thinking are inevitably caught up. Because we are inevitably rational, which doesn't mean in any way that we're, like robots or calculators. It just means that we have a rational part of us that we can't excise. Because of that, the dynamic between the passions and the intellect plays out. And I think, even though I'm putting this in very Aristotelian sort of terms, it's very much the same thing that people like Freud and Jung kind of uncovered, is that you have your thoughts and your feelings, and they generate this field almost that you have to deal with one way or the other.
What's another word for Aristotelian? What do you mean by that word?
So it's really rather boring. I mean, I've studied a lot of Aristotle, and like Joyce himself, I'm very firm on Aristotle being the acme of philosophy. So Aristotelian, in the sense of content, basically means what they call hylomorphism. Are you familiar with that term?
Please explain me that term.
So there's form and there's matter, and a lot of pre-Socratic philosophy is caught up with which one of these is fundamental, in one way or the other. So Plato tries to solve this problem by making everything boil down to the forms, but Aristotle is unique in the way that he develops what will later be called substance as the fundamental term rather than form. So a substance is a form and matter united into one another, right? So in the context of what I was just answering, the intellect is far more connected to form, and the body and the passions are far more connected to matter. But the human being as a composite being is not. It's not. They're fundamentally one or the other. It's that they're fundamentally a mix of the two. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But I study a lot of differentiating form from content. When
Uh
you said form and
huh.
matter, is
Right.
matter and content equal?
Well, I think that is ultimately a conversation that on a philosophical level can't really be had, because the ancient the ancient philosophers were using an entirely different lexicon. And I myself, when it comes to modern philosophy, I've studied a lot of Deleuze. That's the person I'm really the closest with there, and I know he uses the term content a lot. But I try not to really mix those two things too much, because I don't think it's particularly useful.
Useful, good. So yeah, when I ask that question, are we more feeling or thinking? Most people go, I think we're more feeling. So you literally said, I think we're more thinking, but then
Yeah,
you elucidated on it, and I appreciate that.
right,
Bridget Bardot says, when I make love, I don't think. I'm like, good luck. How do you turn your brain off? Or like
right.
people meditate, go, okay, now think about not thinking.
Hmm.
And there's a bumper sticker on my street on a car. It says, don't believe everything you think. And I'm like, well, you could say, don't believe everything you feel.
Yeah. Well, Joyce has that line: first we feel, then we fall in the wake.
Yeah. Yeah, that's Fid Fordham. He says that's the whole way. First we feel, then we fall. I love it because I'm dyslexic or dyslexia, and I get them mixed up. First we fall, then we feel. No, first we
Hmm.
feel, then we fall.
Hmm.
What's the difference?
Hmm. Hmm.
It's just a couple letters in between F and L.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, these are two from Alan Turing in the 50s. One is thinking a function of the soul.
Is thinking a function of the soul? Yeah, absolutely.
Second Turing question, can machines think?
No.
Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
happiness, but I wouldn't say it's happiness in a vulgar sense of just enjoyment per se. But again, the term eudaimonia, which if you were to translate it as crudely as possible, would more or less mean being in good spirits.
Well, I got the question from Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. He says that happiness doesn't tend to last and meaning tends to last. What do you think of that?
Well, I don't think human life tends to last either.
Yeah.
So the point is to do something that is in line with your own nature.
Yeah.
There's a point that Aristotle says at some point, only a fool deliberates about immortality, because deliberation is concerned with things that are in or are not in your power. So um, meaning is a tricky term. I don't even know. Ironically, I don't really even know what that means.
Yeah. Does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're more so detecting it or more so creating it?
Can you repeat the question?
Are we more so detecting consciousness or creating consciousness? I know it's both, and it depends on
Yeah,
all
yeah,
these.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, just if you lean a little more, are
I
we
would say
more?
it's closer to saying we are creating consciousness, but it's not us who's creating the consciousness. We are created in a sense by the consciousness, but it's really nature itself that's doing that.
Nature's, yeah, okay. What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Thought.
There's no right or wrong answers, dude, but that one you got right. Okay, Audrey Audre Lorde, the poet, said you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Her
Hmm.
colleague, her colleague Yvonne Rainer said, "Oh, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?"
Mm. Well, sometimes I think the new tools have to be the old tools.
Yeah.
And in some sense, I think verse, and particularly narrative verse, is that tool in this case. The whole question made me think of, I'm not always a fan of him, but it made me think of Harold Bloom's concept of the anxiety of influence, and the way in which, the master, in this case being the preceding poet, has some amazing power that is both given to and intimidating to the predecessor, like Virgil and Dante. And they have to find a way to, like you said, dismantle the master's house, but they can't use the master's tools to do it. They almost have to make their own, but they have to construct that tool out of the master's tools.
Yeah, I love that Harold Bloom. I think he is a master, and
Plus, his name being Bloom just makes the whole Joyce the Joyce
yeah,
thing.
he loves Awake too. But here, what I've gotten this from some source. Anxiety of influence. He's basically saying you absorb your influence, then
Mhm.
you abandon them.
Right, right, right. And he also has the concept of the powerful misreading, right? So a great example of that is the way Virgil was taken to be in one of his eclogues, prefiguring Christianity in what he was talking about, which was probably not the case at all. He was probably talking about some kind of Orphic or whatever mystery religion concept, but it happened to work perfectly for Dante to misread it that way, and it leads to a whole a thing that I think we're all glad happened, right?
So you're saying Bloom actually doesn't demonize it or promote it. He
No,
just said sometimes you misread
hmm,
your your influence, and then that can lead to an epiphany or a goodness.
right. But he goes even further because he says there's some kind of basically psychological drive for the poet to do this or the predecessor to do this because of what he calls the agonistic spirit of Western literature. So it's kind of a competition. You can't be overshadowed by what came before you. But at the same time, it kind of comprises your entire artistic sensibility. So you have to find a way to take that and also destroy it at the same time, almost.
He's sort of condoning. He says, "Go ahead, misinterpret it.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter."
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's
He's got another book that's called "Ruin the Sacred Truths." So I think that tracks perfectly with that.
that's well, McLuhan says half a truth is still a lot of a truth.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's funny. I was going to say something else about misinterpreting. Yeah. When you well, it's really what McLuhan got from the wake is how do you turn a breakdown into a breakthrough?
Of course, of
Yeah.
course.
Okay. What's a toy you gravitate? Well, let's go to your tool for a second. What is narrative verse means what?
Well, I think if you look at the 20th century in poetry, and even a little bit before, even with Whitman, really American poetry in general, there's very few examples of narrative poetry. So Robert Frost has a few excellent ones. There's, the Song of Hiawatha, which was very popular. But beyond that, what we have in America is what's called the long poem, which is an entirely different sort of thing. People like T.S. Eliot and the Wasteland, or Ezra Pound in the Cantos, they're not straightforward narrative poems like Ovid was, or Homer or Virgil or Dante. And I've always the more and more I've studied and learned about poetry, the more and more I've questioned this fundamental lack of engagement with the most basic and universal form of poetry. If you go pretty much any time and any place that's ever existed, a narrative poem is considered to be the acme of what a poem is. There were lyric
Hey,
poems.
what's the word acme mean?
It's the gold standard.
The gold standard, yeah. But
Yeah.
why is in all the Warner Brothers Bugs Bunny cartoons the products are always Roadrunner? Why is it Acme?
Well,
ACN.
you answered your own question because it's the gold standard.
You mean it's like we name it's like
It's
Xerox.
the best. It's the best. Yeah.
You answered your own question. Dang. Okay, the interview's over. I can answer my own question. But you're teaching me a lot. I appreciate this, Luke. But there's a funny little twist. You saying that Whitman and Frost were narrative verse, or
Well, no, not Whitman.
were
Frost
not.
had a few narrative poems. He had a
But
few narrative poems. I wouldn't say he was narrative verse in general, but there's
you're
something
saying
interesting.
narrative. You're saying narrative versus Dante, Virgil, Ovid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's telling a story, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So Joyce has the lyrical, the epic, and the dramatic forms that he talks about in Portrait of the Artist. And narrative verse is always either the second or the third. But if you look at it in the most formal level, pretty much all of what we consider American poetry takes up the first category. It's all very much written from the voice of the I, or from the poet speaking his thoughts and his experiences. It's not a series of events with other characters, whatnot in it, for the most part.
So you're saying American poetry is mainly lyrical, whereas
Yes.
Joyce wants it to be lyrical, epic, and dramatic.
Yes, Finnegan's Wake is creating a whole new form that is
beyond those three.
Beyond those three, yeah. And
Okay.
I think Pound was really trying to do the same thing in the cantos, but he failed, and I think Joyce succeeded.
But do you know this? I've studied Lord Buckley a lot. You ever hear of this comedian?
No.
Dude, look him up. He's the most influential American comedian ever. So
Lord Buckley?
Lord Buckley, he was a jazz shaman, and he basically influenced Jonathan Winters, Robin Williams, George Carlin.
Wow.
It is endless. who they're on their knees to Lord Buckley.
Hmm.
And you can look him up and study him. And he he basically turned vaudeville joke telling into storytelling. So the most
Right.
important comedian that he influenced is the most influential comedian of all Americans is Lenny Bruce.
Mm-hmm.
So if you study Lenny Bruce and go, what was your main influence? It says strip clubs and Lord Buckley. And so Lord Buckley he says he was subversive. He turned joke telling into storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that's pretty amazing. And I think that's what Frank Zappa does. He was subversive. He turned songwriting into storytelling.
Yeah.
And so, and then you flip the whole thing, and Joyce says, leave storytelling to the journalist.
Right. Right.
That's funny because he's like, no, okay, but should we go off script here for a second? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do this. What's the difference between narrative and storytelling?
That is a question. I have no answer to that whatsoever. That's a tremendous question though.
Yeah. Okay, but you don't even want to guess? I mean, what's your hunch?
What do you think? What do you think? Do you have any
But yeah, I know I have one little thing, but what's your hunch? You're saying there is no
my hunch is
difference?
more that narrative concerns the structure of it, whereas storytelling I guess is really the act of doing it.
Okay. Now that's interesting because this guy worked for Bob Dylan. He went to high school with Bob Dylan, and now he's like this
Mm-hmm.
religious dude. He's really gave me a great podcast once.
Yeah.
He said someone told him that the difference between narrative and storytelling is that narrative doesn't lie. Now, that he's sort of implying, well, in storytelling, you can make shit up.
Yeah.
But narrative doesn't lie. Any thoughts on that? I'm not trying to have you agree or disagree, but just that line, that narrative doesn't lie. Yeah.
That actually makes perfect sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it a little bit more, right? So bringing back to my big Aristotle, in the Poetics, he describes plot as the I'm gonna use the word again, the acme of what a good drama is. The plot is the the structure of the events.
Yeah.
Storytelling is more like Tristram Shandy. It's more like the art of weaving the thread, and you can certainly um, obscure even the narrative itself through the storytelling of it. Look at a book like Pale Fire by Nabokov.
Is that Nabokov's kind of Awakening thing?
I don't know if I'd call it a Wakian thing. It's almost more like it's like infinite jest in a weird way, in which it has like a text referring to other texts within it. Which, of course, the Wake does have that, but it has so much more than that I would say I wouldn't really compare the two.
Does David refer to the Wake in Infinite Jest?
I'm not sure.
Oh, did you ever read it?
No, never read it all the way through.
But here's the thing.
Frankly, I never really thought the prose warranted the time spent.
Yeah. The movie about him being interviewed by the Rolling Stone dude. You ever see that?
With Jesse Eisenberg? No, I never did see that. Was it good?
That I enjoyed the movie. I mean, it just gave me a sense of who he was. I haven't read him. I don't know enough about him, but I have this list of all these people who I think are Wakian wannabes.
Yep.
The DeLillo, Pynchon, Gaddis, blah, 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 and then it gets into the screenwriters. You ever watch Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
I never watched it, but I guess it was great writing. And the guy who wrote it, do you know anything about him?
No.
His latest show is Pluribus.
Yeah.
You see it?
No. No.
Okay, I didn't see it either, but someone told me like 2 weeks ago. Two women are talking in this TV show, and one goes, "Have you ever read Finnegan's Wake?" And the other one goes, "No, but I hear it's a masterpiece."
Oh man.
Now, do you know when they shoot that shit in? It's pretty amazing. You ever
Yeah.
read Peter Quadrino's Pantheon article about Finnegan's Wake?
No. No.
Oh, you should check it because it's like every person who's kind of known, popular celebrity, whether they're, McLuhan or John Cage or Jack White loves Finnegan's Wake. Johnny Depp loves it. Uh, Frank Gehry gave Jay-Z a copy of Finnegan's Wake.
Wow.
It's endless. So
Wow.
the Game of Thrones guy is a Wakean.
Yeah.
And the biggest one is Ryan Johnson, this guy who Knives Out and Star Wars. His first film was Finnegan's Wake. He made a short film.
Wow.
I mean, it's pretty amazing how it shoots into normal popular culture.
Yeah.
Because your great article, the intimidating, what's it called? The
I think it was called The Intimidating Finnegan's Wake.
the intimidating Finnegan's Wake
Yeah.
gives the main ones like Burgess. Who do you mention? Burgess, McLuhan.
I mentioned John Lennon, Bob Dylan.
Right, John Lennon, Bob Dylan,
Yeah,
Burgess.
Anthony Burgess, Delmore Schwartz.
Delmore Schwartz is the other one. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Delmore Schwartz is did you know he's Lou Reed's mentor?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah. So anyways, this is the thing I left out there before we went on Tangent Heaven is McLuhan wrote 22 books from 1940 to 1980, basically.
Yeah.
Got famous, cover of Newsweek, Medium is the Message, Medium is the Massage. Mid-career, he did a anxiety of influence. He updated his main aphorism. The medium is the massage to the user is the content.
The user is the content.
Right.
I think that's very Joycean.
That's where he got it from, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, he got everything he knows from the Wake. But I somehow that went to something you were saying about when we were going into narrative versus storytelling. But anyways, I forgot it. But anyways, I just wanted to tell you that. So we can go back on the script if you want. Okay. So
whatever you want to do.
Yeah, you mentioned your tool as being narrative verse. I ask people what their favorite tool or what tool do they gravitate towards.
Right.
And then one guy goes, "Well, what about a toy?" So now I ask you to follow up is what's a toy you gravitate towards?
Yeah. Well, the toy would be metaphor for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, you take those two things together, metaphor and narrative. And that's, I think, anytime you're looking for the peaks of verse that we human beings have written, you're always going to find it in those two forms, in particular in like Ovid.
Yeah. And you said the word peaks, Peaks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Because, there's another thing I learned from McLuhan is that, and I was amazed that you mentioned McLuhan in your article because McLuhan sort of blackballed out of academia and out of Joyce studies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And rightfully so. He, my line is Joyce, McLuhan's Menippean satirized translation of the Wake broke the Finnegan's Wake code. In the hard code Joyceans go, you can't break the Finnegan's Wake code.
Well, I think the thing that's so powerful about Finnegan's Wake is that it's meant to be broken in that way, and it
is. What's the it there? The translation of the Wake or
the quote unquote code.
Oh, the code is meant to be what?
Is that and that it's basically it's more or less idiosyncratic to the individual who's reading it. and there is no incorrect. There's just a multiplicity of
Yeah. Yeah.
perspectives, and the more that you amplify together, the more magnificent it becomes. Now, it may be the case that somebody like McLuhan's is far more developed because he put so much more time into it than other people's, but it doesn't make it really any more idiosyncratic.
Right. He's not more yeah, I got this book right here. It's my favorite book about Finnegan's Wake. Well, one of my favorites. It's like The Idiot's Guide to Finnegan's Wake. It's pretty bad in a way,
Yeah,
but it isn't. It's like that's it. I
yeah,
mean, it's like you can't buy Cliff Notes for Finnegan's Wake, but then my friend found one, and I was like, "What?" I don't think it's Cliff Notes; it's some other
right.
company. But you're saying the code is meant to not be broken ever, or
Yeah. Well, in the wake there's Shem and there's Sean, right?
yeah,
And there's the whole thing about it's like the daylight awakening of Sean when he comes and he brings the letter, but he's changed everything and oversimplified everything when he gives it to the people, and that's very much like what people do or try to do to Finnegan's Wake. But in the same way, uh, Sean isn't necessarily wrong or bad. It's just
right,
part of the dynamic of Finnegan's Wake being
yeah,
disseminated into the world.
yeah. Because what I was going to say when you said metaphor is the thing that Joyce got, the thing that McLuhan got from Joyce is how do you reword an epiphany or an aphorism or a maxim?
Mm-hmm.
To be or not to be, to pee or not to pee. That's what
Mm-hmm.
people my age.
Mm-hmm.
And so Joyce took Browning's "Our reach should exceed our grasp," or "What is heaven for?"
Yeah.
And he reworded it, and he said McLuhan's is "Our reach should exceed our grasp," or "What
Yeah.
is a metaphor?"
Yeah.
He
And
changed.
yeah, that one little change can change
Yeah.
everything. There's line in the wake where he says, I must have said the fake, which in and of itself is hilarious. All is going on the same here, or so it appeals to us instead of appears to us. And just by changing that one thing, he uncovers a whole world just with one letter.
It's appeals instead of appears.
Yeah, like we just want to pretend everything is going on the same, right?
Do you know what page that is?
I do not. I have no idea.
Okay, don't worry about it. I love. And so you did the toy, you did that. Okay, now what do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
Waking up on time in the morning.
McLuhan learned from Pound that artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions.
Mm-hmm.
So we might learn how to cope with what we don't like about our inventions.
Mm-hmm.
So I ask you the question that Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
I think in some way their influence is too direct and strong in the sense that they're inventing us or recreating us in a lot of ways. In another sense, I think I would go even further when it comes to talking up the role of the artist in civilization. Um, I don't know. I don't remember who it was, Dante or Joyce, but one of them talks about metaphor as the only known method to go from the known to the unknown.
Yeah.
And this is done in language, of course, but it ultimately translates to all other forms of intellectual and civilizational endeavor. I think that's part of Joyce's focus on Vico in the text, is the way in which I really do think that Joyce looks at his own text as he has the poetic age, the heroic age, and then the intellectual age. Then there's the ricorso. I think Joyce looks at excuse me, the wake as the poetic text of a new cycle of the ages. And he eventually says to somebody, you know, it may be madness, but it'll take 100 or so years for anybody to figure it out. Um, the key is the way in which the text itself enters into a relationship with the civilization that proceeds from it. If you look at the way that Homer precedes Plato, for example, and then you look at ours, our civilization. Sorry, I gotta get some water. I got some right here. If you look at the way that our civilization um, is all filled with Wakean content, it's amazing. The Quark, right? All the finest artists of the 20th century, all being enamored with Joyce. The way that he kind of predicts all kinds of media things that have occurred since the wake. I think you can see it's only getting more and more relevant, and it's one of those texts like I don't think that its full impact has even really been understood yet, but I do think that it will be.
No, good luck, dude. I mean, that's the epitome of the wake, is that it's the history of everything that ever happened and ever will happen. But you know, all the power to us if we break the Finnegan's Wake code or do whatever you're talking about more with the wake. All the power to us. Like I asked Robert Dobbs once, will they ever sell Finnegan's Wake on the Home Shopping Network?
Right, right, right.
You know, and so there was one thing that you said that reminded me of something that Dobbs taught me. Was you said that we ignore these hidden psychic effects because the influence is too strong. The effects are, and you used a verb, the effects of these hidden psychic effects are,
I think I said they're direct. I believe is what I said.
they are direct, because
Yeah.
it sounded like something he said. What happens is that human inventions have hidden psychic effects. Then the humans start imitating the hidden psychic effect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, oh, I had a dream last night, and it was like a movie.
Mm-hmm.
So we use that as the metaphor to describe the hidden psychic effect. And then what happens is then the hidden psychic effects take over. They're called the android meme, and humans disappear. So it's just android memes talking to android memes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I think the beauty of Finnegan's Wake as a night book, a lot of it is that what would be otherwise hidden psychic effects become more or less transparent. And that's you awake to these things, and it's in a as Spinoza says, a lot of your power in the world depends on your consciousness of what is actually occurring. And Finnegan's Wake reveals these things to you in it through humor, you know,
Yeah,
which adds a certain ecstasy to discovering what in a lot of cases would be shameful.
yeah. That's when you're laughing, you're learning. That's really
Mm-hmm.
good. Do artists have moral obligation?
Um, I wouldn't say that they have any moral obligation, but I would say that it's really just a matter of nobility in a certain sense, where
What's
there's
the
artists.
word? Wait, Luke. The word is nobility.
Nobility, yeah.
What do you mean by that?
I mean nobility not in any kind of sense of rank or order, but just in the sense of your generosity of spirit, you know, gentleness of heart, and things like that. So an artist doesn't have a moral obligation, but I think that if you look at great artists, you'll always see that they have a great spirit, and the lessons that they teach you are not always, even if they'll teach you the most brutal existential metaphysical lessons, but they'll also teach you, to be kind and to be compassionate and things like that.
Are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
I wouldn't say that I'm afraid of ideas at all.
Yeah. Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
Yeah, yeah. I remember running in like a set of pajamas to my glass screen door, and then putting my hands up and looking through my door and see my dad getting out of his Jeep, walking up towards the house.
What city?
Wardsboro, Vermont. Yeah, it's a very, 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 very small town.
Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
A blessing. A blessing. I would
Tell me.
say.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
So memory, of course, the muses are the daughters of memory. So all the arts of poetry come from memory, and particularly the memory of words. Even when you write new poetry, everything that you're writing down is something that you remember in one form or the other, and you're putting it together. On a broader level, if you combine memory and foresight, then you have the field of human consciousness that makes us so much more dynamic than every other creature that we know about.
Tell me someone within your immediate family who had an impact on you, and what specifically was that impact?
I'm gonna say I'm gonna say my brother, and in terms of language, my obsession with language and my knack for it. So it started off when I was a very, very young kid, probably 7 or 6. My brother got one of those Japanese role playing games for the PlayStation called Final Fantasy, I think Final Fantasy 8. And those games used to come with these big, thick, they called them strategy guides, and you read them to get through the game. And I would always watch my brother play, and I would read these strategy guides to him, and I had no concept that what I was doing was in any way, impressive or anything like that, until I started to go into school, and all my teachers were like, "Why can this kid read so good?" And I ended up in my own, advanced reading groups and things like these because of video games. And then my brother and I are the kind of classic brothers who like to have a lot of battles of wit, let's say. And I spent my whole life, engaging in those in a very extreme form, and a lot of them had to do with punning and coming up with our own private language and things like that. And a lot of that is why I gravitated so much towards Joyce.
Your brother's older or younger?
He's older than me. Yeah,
How many years?
he's 7 years older than me.
What's his name?
His name's Matt.
What's his profession?
He's a recording engineer.
So, when you were reading these video instruction booklets,
Yeah.
You weren't a reader already?
No, in no way, shape, or form.
But then,
Yeah, so that's what's sort of
but
strange
you're
about it, is that
reading,
my skill or whatever in reading came from something that had nothing to do with what people typically think of when they think of as reading, right?
but how did you do? You just taught yourself how to read better, or they were well written, or they were.
Yeah, they were well written, but they were relatively technical. I think they were probably written for a kid who was like 18, 19. They're written for basically an adult.
But you're reading them to your brother, and then he's hearing what you're saying, and then he knows. Like you're reading the instruction booklet
Yes.
to him.
And in some sense, that's something interesting to me in terms of my orientation towards language, is that it's always been very much connected to action in the world. Because of that experience, when you read the book, you're not just trying to absorb the information. I have to then direct him to do this or to do that. And it came the other way as well. I'm seeing what's happening on the screen and seeing how it's connecting to the words on the page, right?
You became a video guy, a video game guy too, because of that, or not?
I would say I don't know if it was necessarily because of that, but I did become a video game guy for some time. I stopped that probably when I was 18, 17, 18.
Do most your peers stop video games, or do they keep going?
It was a mix. I would say
Nick,
some do,
yeah,
some don't.
like your brother, did he stop video games?
No, he still plays video games.
Wow. And you don't?
No, I don't. For me, it
Oh,
was really for me it was a woman. It was love that led me away from the screen.
that led you away from video games?
Yeah.
Okay, so the other thing about Battle of the Wits, were you learning that from who? From TV shows, or where'd you learn to be witty and punny at that age with your brother?
Well, I think part of it is somewhat probably a lot of it is TV shows and movies. We watch
What
those
what TV shows?
I would think, your classic, a lot of 90s like comedy stuff, like, Saturday Night Live of that era, like Chris Rock and not Chris Rock, Chris Farley and Adam Sandler, all of Adam Sandler's movies, and then all those Jim Carrey movies from the 90s. But more than anything, it's just really, there's a certain, to use a Cormac McCarthy word, atavism that exists between two brothers, and it plays out. And a lot of the times it's just the fact that you're so offended or you want to win the argument so bad that itself sort of will fire up your wit. And it's just years and years and years of doing that led me to become quite a clever little guy.
How do you spell atavism?
Atavism, Atavism.
Oh, ATA.
Yeah,
What else?
VISM.
In that he made up that word?
No, no, he didn't make up that word. It's just a word he uses a lot in Blood Meridian, and it describes a sort of primal adversarial attitude that human beings have towards each other.
Wow, very good. Okay, so tell me someone outside your immediate family who had an impact on you, and what was that impact?
Sure, sure. I'll say a man named Thomas Simone. He's passed away now, so bless his memory. He was a professor that I had at the University of Vermont. His expertise was Dante, Shakespeare, and James Joyce. So he's the one that I took a class in Joyce from, who really opened my eyes to the whole world of James Joyce. I studied Ulysses with him. I never studied Finnegan's Wake with him, but he was always very adamant that he thought I should go on and continue studying Joyce because he saw that I had a love for it.
That was studying, not creative writing. He didn't teach you to be a poet. He taught you to
No,
study. He's taught you to study literature.
right.
Yeah.
But I would say his orientation towards these texts was, he was invested in them spiritually, and he was invested in passing that on to his students. It wasn't just a matter of academics.
Did your parents raise you a particular religion?
No.
Do you pray?
Yeah.
If God exists, what would you want God to say to you after you die?
That was fun.
You want him to say that was fun.
Uh-huh.
Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
I don't believe evil exists at all.
So,
I feel about that.
but I mean, it's really like the hidden question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? So someone who does something that's undesirable.
How would I advise someone to deal with an enemy?
Yeah, but let me set it up first. But that's sort of like putting in that, well, they did something that's evil. It's like undesirable. That, you know what I'm saying? The word, you don't believe in evil, but there's words, there's other words that describe what people do that other people might say is evil, or as undesirable or whatever.
Yeah.
So we're on the same page. So
Yeah.
how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? Let me set it up to get us started. It is, Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the Mob and the Samurai: keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Mm-hmm.
JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of thoughts. The basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
Well, I would say that if somebody is your enemy in the first place, whether or not you acknowledge them as your enemy is one thing, is totally kind of irrelevant. And on a tactical level, if somebody is your enemy and you don't acknowledge them, you're kind of foolish, right?
Yeah, I have that. People say, well, if you don't acknowledge them, you empower them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, what if your friend's saying, hey, this person's acting undesirable towards me?
Mm-hmm.
What should I do? What advice would you give them?
That's a very case by case situation.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, to say a younger friend, a child or a teenager says, I'm being bullied at school.
Mm-hmm. I would advise anybody to you have to have victory over your enemy.
Yeah.
I really believe that.
Yeah.
It may seem like a sort of extravagant thing to say, but in a Nietzschean sense, I do think that the will to power is more or less inextinguishable.
Yeah.
And any desire to circumvent your own desire to have that victory is only going to lead you to try and seek it in a more perverse or moralizing way.
Yeah. But here's one more extension of that, and that's Nassim Taleb saying, games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who a hero is. My friend said, well, villains don't think they're bad. They want control. Heroes want freedom.
Of
And
course.
Gregory Bateson says, if the criminal gets caught, does he go, whoa, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff that day?
Mm.
Or does he go, oh, I did something morally and socially wrong? So again, it's a lot of prompts. The basic question is, you can go wherever you want. Basic question is, does punishment work?
Yeah, I have a very fascinating perspective on what a hero and a villain is.
Yeah.
That's kind of goes beyond literary in a way. And I think that the hero and the villain have a lot in common. And most of what they have in common is that they have some kind of exceptional ability in some respect. And that exceptional ability, whatever it may be that they have, means that they cannot fit in with the rest of society. And so exile becomes a kind of necessity for them.
Yeah.
The hero, I think, is somebody who accepts that, not just accepts it, but cultivates whatever that exceptional thing is that they have for the service of that larger community.
Yeah.
Whereas the villain is somebody who tries to cultivate that same thing to destroy that community. So what's so, I'll use the word again, noble about the hero is the fact that they serve a community that really has in some way wronged and exiled them, but it doesn't matter, right? Whereas the villain responds in a very typically childish way.
So like Robin Hood would be the hero, and then the evil bad landlord or slumlord would be the villain.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then if the villain gets caught or the hero gets caught, does punishment work? they're doing something that's like breaking laws. They're doing
Right.
something against the community's standards or rules.
Right. And I think that's why the hero, in some sense, like this is how I think it is in Beowulf. The hero exists because when the community is confronted with a villain, those same laws that um, are the basis of the decency of the community, they actually need to be broken for the preservation of that community. And the
Yeah.
hero is the person who does that, who goes beyond the law in order to preserve
Yeah.
it. But that takes an extraordinary amount of integrity in order to do that and not be, a complete uh, megalomaniac villain.
Who did that? Is there an example you can give, either in real life or in fiction?
I would say Beowulf is an example of that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Beowulf is an example of that.
Yeah. But does punishment work? Is the follow up?
Does punishment work in what sense?
Well, if the villain breaks the rules and helps hurt the community, and the community catches him,
Mm-hmm.
and then they say, "Okay, we're putting you in jail. Or we're gonna chop your head off or do some sort of punishment." Does it work?
So I think punishment is, Nietzsche said the same thing. It's actually a form of revenge,
Yeah.
which doesn't make it right or wrong.
Yeah.
But the point is that the impulse for cruelty is always caught up in punishment, even if it's has a pretext of being legal or whatever. So in this sense, I believe what Machiavelli believed. He said that human beings do not forgive small insults and think they basically do not forgive things that they can recover from. But if it's beyond that, they have no choice but to accept it. So I don't think punishment works, but I do think that vengeance in the absolute sense does work.
Susan, somebody's here. Can you deal with it, Susan? Sorry, we got a little a little pause here for a second. Let's. Why don't you read a poem?
Cigarette.
Either read a poem or just talk to the audience.
Hey guys, you get to watch me smoke a cigarette.
We talk right now, but what? That's fine. Okay. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So on that subject, I wrote an essay called "Can Art Stop War?" And I just want to say that most people think we're hardwired for violence or war. And Maria Gambudis spawned Rian Eisler's book, The Chalice and the Blade, and they basically say, no, we're more hardwired for cooperation than we are for violence or warfare or fighting. Now, that's a value judgment. That maybe it goes against Machiavelli.
No, but I would go beyond that. I mean, I would say that we're hardwired for love.
Yeah.
I think that in a Darwinian sense, evolution really isn't about the survival of the fittest. If you really think about it, it's about the survival of the most attractive. It's about the survival of the people who have the highest capacity to reproduce, and that's about love, not war.
Yeah.
But the two are kind of caught up in, and that's what human civilization is all about. I think that was what the whole thing in ancient Rome about Venus and Mars and their whole tryst was really about.
Yeah. Very good. So let's see. James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin about 100 years ago. Volta Cinema.
In more ways than one.
He basically checked out. He said, "This is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree?"
Yeah.
Years later, Faulkner said, "Sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism."
Mm-hmm.
Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Well, it's I keep bringing him up, but I'm not going to stop. It's Aristotle. Again, in the Poetics, he says that poetry is more serious and philosophical than history,
Yeah.
because history is about what happened on this particular time, or this particular time, or this particular time. Poetry is about what always happens. So if you open a book of poems and they're great poems, it's going to be the news. It's going to be the headlines every day. You're going to
Yeah.
see the same thing. So I think the book of Genesis is so great because of that. If you look at the Tower of Babel story, it's the story of the collapse of every civilization, and that's going to happen over and over again.
Yeah. Wow. So Luke, walk us through your tipping point. So you're hanging out with your brother, you're learning how to read,
Mm-hmm.
you're learning how to pun and get witty, and
Mm-hmm.
then you go to college. What attracts you to go into college and pick the subjects that you studied?
Yeah, yeah.
Poli sci and in what was the other one? Poli sci and English lit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at first, I came to college for the same reason I stopped playing video games, for love. There was a girl. She was going. We were in a relationship. She was going up to college. I didn't really know what I was going to do, so I decided I'm just going to go to college as well. At first, it's funny that you just mentioned journalism. That's what I was studying. I was planning on being a journalist because, I looked at the things that I had a knack for, and writing was one of them. So again, at this point, I really had never engaged with any kind of serious literature or philosophy. All I read was the news, pretty much 24/7.
Wait,
Uh,
you read newspapers or you read the news online?
I read the news online. I mean, I did get the newspaper when I could, but for the most part, it was on my phone or my computer.
But you were saying you're already writing. So in high school, are you writing?
In high school, I mean, it's funny, I didn't write ever for pleasure, but I always whenever I would get assigned a writing thing, I would always get really excited because it was like a chance to show off something that I knew that I was really good at, and I'd always get a great grade on it.
But you're actually you're really good at writing because you're reading stuff, literature,
I think
or
it has more to do with thinking, with just developing that linguistic part of my brain through mostly talking and playing video games. Back then, before they had voice actors and stuff, it was all text. So I'd be playing these video games sometimes for 6 7 hours at a time, and the whole thing, it's like a movie, it's like a silent movie. And I'd be doing that for a long time. So language is just something I was always good at.
you're
And then
reading. Yeah, you're reading video game texts
yeah,
to develop your skill as a reader
right,
and
right.
to develop your skill as a writer as well.
Right. And I had no concept. And the other thing, I'm glad we're talking about this, because I brushed past this before, was listening to a lot of rap. I listened to a lot of crappy underground rap from like the late 90s and early 2000s at the same time. And so that
Who,
whole facility and
yeah.
dexterity with language became very attractive to me through that as well.
Who was the two or three bands that stood out?
Yeah, yeah. There was a rapper named Self-Titled with a C. He was a Cuban guy. There was this guy Apathy. He was from Connecticut, I think. And then just all the classic ones like Nas and Biggie and people like that.
How about Wu Tang?
Of course, Wu Tang forever. Wu Tang is for the children.
Of course, that was good. Okay, so now you get to college and you say, "Oh, I'll study journalism."
Yeah. And so I did that for a few years, and what happened is I had a class in poetry that was just one of like the required classes, and this is the first time I started to write poetry. It was taught by a guy named Jim Ellefson. He's a crazy guy. He's the man. This old guy with long gray hair. He lives in a house that's got a tree planted inside of it with like a 2-story staircase going up. And we did the final exam. We go there and read at his house. It was awesome. But I noticed and I have no desire to be boastful about any of these things. In the class, I didn't care about this stuff at all, but every time I would write the poem, it would be way better than everybody else's. And everybody in the class, including the professor, would react like that. And it got to the point by the end of the semester, I realized that I was really good at this, and I should keep doing it, or I should not stop doing it. And for the next few years, I just kept writing, like compulsively, the 10, 20 times a day, writing poems. And I've never stopped doing this since that happened. Yeah.
Well, have you ever published a chapbook or have you published any poems?
No, no. And
No,
it's such a,
no desire to publish them, but you will
no,
go
it's
to.
not that I have no desire. I have a desire to publish them. It's almost just like a strange compulsion where I just can't stop.
Right.
I can't stop writing. And it got to a point, I've engaged now that I've been living in New York, and I moved to New York just for the sake of poetry as well. It's the poetry capital of America. Engaged with a lot of, the whole Columbia scene, and I don't know. I just don't really like what is being written in the country, and I've gotten to the point in my development that I want to try and create a new way in every sense. I have no desire at this point to participate in the whole publishing game and any of that, because I know with the resources that exist as they stand today, in a McLuhan sense, it's completely possible for one man to run a whole operation like that themselves.
Right, but you are participating in open mic. So you're participating in the reading of your poems in front of an audience, but you're not participating you've never peddled a poem to a magazine or a chapbook or anything.
No. And I mean, you've come to me at a good time in my life, in fact, because there's a sense that I really, really, really wanted to become really, really good before I did that. And I certainly have
Right.
taken that to excess a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's only become, in a sense, more amusing to me as I've done that, because I'm well aware the chops that I have, and I've gotten to the point where I'm more shopping around for the right opportunity to roll that out than anything else.
None of your peers have said, dude, you should submit or do a chapbook. Do they ever tell you that?
No, because my peers have never really been the people that I hang out with, and stuff like that, have never really been like poetry people at all. So I've always been apart from that world.
From a
the
peer group of poets.
Yeah, I've never had a peer group of poets, really.
Yeah. But that's interesting, because you said in that class, all the people in their class and your teacher said you're the best one. But then, yeah. Okay.
And I know, I have a great friend of mine, my best friend, Eugenio. He's somebody who has never touched or just like me, never written poetry in their life. And the only poetry he's ever read is my poetry. And the other a week, he showed me a poem of his that he had written, and it was excellent. And I could see it was like dripping with that energy that I put into my poetry. That I didn't get that energy from myself. I received it through the study of other poets.
Yeah.
And to just see that was more affirming to me than any kind of award or anything like that could ever be.
Studying other poets has been how long? Since, what would you say? Since gym class? That's when
since I was 19.
Age 19 to how old are you now?
33.
From 19 to 33, you've studied a lot of poets.
Yeah. And not just poets, really. After his class, my interest shifted to politics, in particular. Through journalism, most great journalism is about politics.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where my interest shifted. And my goal really was to become a politician, to become like a congressman or a senator. And I went down this track very far and quite seriously. So I got very into figures like Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy. And it was through these figures that I got into people like Plato.
Yeah.
And it was through this that I got into literature and to Homer and to Virgil and
Yeah.
to Shakespeare. Uh, but when I discovered Joyce, the power of it was so intense and resonated so much with all of my life experience with language that it made me completely abandon that path, knowing exactly how that looked to everybody around me, and go in the direction of being a poet. And I
Yeah.
knew that there's no money in poetry whatsoever, and I was going to have to support myself. So I worked a lot of manual labor jobs, and I've been lucky enough recently to start working in a nice sales position in an office job. So it makes life much easier, but it's still the same exact drive with the same exact intensity. And I write more than I ever have, and I'm better than I've ever been. I don't know what else to say. I'm just ranting at this point.
No, that was good because no, your Substack article on the wake is amazing. It's well written. But do you think that purposely you have a sense? It's sort of like Charles Ives, who changed music forever, avant-garde composer in America, had made all his money being an insurance salesman. So he didn't have to
Yeah.
waste. I mean, this is sort of what happens in some of these cases. He
Yeah.
doesn't waste his creative powers
Exactly.
on a 9 to 5 job. He can sort of chill out for his 9 to 5 job, and then he can go home and do his real compulsive calling.
Exactly. And are you familiar with Wallace Stevens, right?
Yeah.
He was a executive at an insurance company, I believe,
Yeah.
as well. So
Yeah.
it really does free up that energy. And, even on a more basic level, having to talk to people all day and sell that is just another extension of that whole
Yeah.
language power that I've always been invested in.
Yeah.
And I enjoy using that in ways that are not connected to literature per se.
Yeah.
A lot like Odysseus just enjoys, the art of being sly with words.
Yeah. A screen. Thank Luke. This is really fun. I appreciate your concise
Yeah,
and
yeah, I'm having a
yeah,
great time.
you're concise and articulate. I appreciate this. So a screenwriting teacher told me great film or great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker.
Hmm.
Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role
Mm.
does intention play in your creative process when you're writing a poem?
Mm. In a sense, I'm a huge. I imagine you are too, given your background. I'm a huge Grateful Dead head, and in a lot of senses, my intention, and this is kind of a paradox here, my intention is to get out of my own way. My intention is kind of to disappear, and that takes a very strange form of meditation in order to get yourself into that state. And that's really what poetry is about. I think it's not the kind of thing like music where you can like practice your scales. What it's about is practicing letting the muse flow through you and develop a relationship with the muse. And I don't think that's just a figure of speech.
Two things. Did you hear Garcia or one of the Dead guys say that, or you observe that from
I
listening to
think
them?
that's pretty much a paraphrase, but I've heard them say, all kinds of things like that.
Yeah.
They're trying to let the music play the band, as it were.
Did you see the 3 hour documentary on him that came out, or
I don't know, maybe on
anyways?
Netflix, The Long Strange Trip, I think it was called.
Yeah, Long Straight Strip. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
you saw that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And it's funny. I always hated the Grateful Dead growing up in Vermont because there's so many hippies there, and I just never listened to the music and just assumed based on some of these people that it was
right.
the worst. And one of my roommates in college, he was a preppy kid from Washington D.C. and he was really into the Grateful Dead. And one night, I'm sure you can imagine what we ingested, and we listened to some Grateful Dead, and I instantly understood from there.
Yeah.
And it was amazing because in the town of Burlington, that's where like Fish started and whatnot. There was a band there that did something called Dead Set every Wednesday with a guy named Zach Nugent,
Yeah.
and that guy ended up becoming the guitar player for the Jerry Garcia band.
Really?
Yeah, and it was amazing to sort of like develop my relationship with the Grateful Dead, and then never, of course, get to see them or anything like that, but have feel like I have that kind of close connection to them because of that.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. But then you said meditation. Did you ever study or go into Eastern philosophies, or you said it how did that word integrate
Yeah,
in what you were
I
where
mean,
did where
go
did you
ahead.
encounter going into Eastern philosophies?
I encountered going into Eastern philosophies first through a friend of mine named Phil. He was studying Mandarin Chinese, so he was very into Buddhism. Um,
This
at
is
that
in
time,
college? Is this
go ahead.
college or
Yeah,
college
this
or
is in college. Yeah,
okay.
at this time I was studying quite a bit of Plato, and I started to see certain connections between the two. I never really dove into it at that stage in my life, but I did sort of have a sense based on those convergences I saw in the conversations we had that there was something universal that went beyond East or West, that both of us had sort of been tapped into. Later in my life, I studied a lot of like Vedic stuff, and also the tradition called Bhakti. And I learned about a lot of these things through a good friend of mine named V Hong. He lives a few blocks away from me now. I actually just saw him, funny enough, 5 minutes when I was walking up here before the interview.
Yeah.
Um, and through him, I developed a connection to, I would say there's a form of Eastern religion and spirituality that is much more primal and older than a lot of what the New Age movement and even like people like Young tapped into. And in a lot of ways, it lines up a lot with Homer, with Joyce, with the whole Western tradition, and that's the Eastern philosophy that I've been more engaged with.
Really good. Have you ever read Hafiz, the Persian Sufi poet?
The name rings a bell, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head. No.
You might want to check him out. He's really good. Okay, now
Yeah.
that
Ibn
Duchamp,
Arabi is a Sufi poet that I'm aware of. I'm
yeah,
not sure if you know him.
I don't know him, but I should. All the Sufi Persian poets are amazing.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
he's somebody again. I learn about these texts in the craziest ways. So I worked as a cook in this restaurant in Manhattan, and one of the dishwashers was this Muslim guy in the basement, and I was talking to him about Dante one day while we were smoking a cigarette outside, and he told me about this guy Ibn Arabi. And I investigated him, and it turns out he wrote this book called The Meccan Revelations, which is about his like journey into the three worlds beyond. And a lot of scholars think that Dante was exposed to Ibn Arabi and drew a lot from it when it came to writing the Divine Comedy. And already being a huge fan of Dante, I just love discovering new things in ways like that.
it's beautiful. The Meccan Revelations. How do you spell it? M-E.
Meccan and then Revelations.
Beautiful. Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your potential reader or listener when you're writing your poem?
Yeah, almost entirely. I think that's and that's something it took me a long time actually to get over. And it's part of my critique that we were kind of getting close to before about American poetry and the way that it's so lyrical and focused on the self.
Yeah. But that's interesting because well, it's both. People say they think of their consumer, what's the Joyce line? Are my consumers not my
Yeah, my
producers?
producers. Yeah.
Yeah. But some people say they don't think of you're saying entirely you're thinking of the person who's going to consume your poem.
Yeah, because
What does
what I'm thinking of is
what
the
does
content.
entirely mean there? What is
Yeah.
entirely?
So what I'm thinking of is, I have a certain idea or message or whatever you want to call it in mind, and I need to communicate that to another person. It's already in my mind. There's no sense. It would almost be completely masturbatory for me to sit down and try and put that into words for myself. The point is to form that in such a way that it comes across to other people. And I think Joyce, although he may seem kind of obscure, is actually the expert at this because the words in Finnegan's Wake are completely sensuous. And 2 nights ago, I was staying up late with some friends. We were drinking. We were talking about how we were going to do this podcast. And I put on Finnegan's Wake. And we listened to it for probably 4 hours straight with barely a word said. And by the end of it, these two, and again, these people they have no education in any of like these specific references or anything like that that go into Finnegan's Wake. They were in a state of, basically ecstasy from just the pure music of the words. And so, although I'm purely thinking of the audience, there is, in a way, there's something I know that they don't know, and I have to figure out how to use the music of the words to get that across to them.
Wow, but no one was looking at the text when you were
No,
playing. You played it
no.
off. Who was the reader? You mean you found someone online or?
Oh yeah, there's the new unabridged rather, audiobook version. Who is it? Who's doing
Right.
it's
Okay,
Marcella Reardon and
yeah,
Gary McGovern. Yeah.
yeah. And you just click that on, and everybody just sat there and listened. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And I find it amazing because I have, although I don't have a lot of literary or poetic friends, I do have a few friends who are rather, cerebral and intellectual, and they always have a certain resistance and almost resentment for Finnegan's Wake anytime I try to bring it up. But um, these are just the most regular salt of the earth people that live in my apartment building,
Yeah.
and they get it with complete simplicity.
Beautiful. McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness. Like knife and fork extends our teeth, shutter and a camera extends our eyelid, and maybe non-tangible, say religion or philosophy, extends consciousness. What
Yeah.
does the writing utensil extend for you, Luke? Whether it's the pen or the keyboard, when you're writing,
Mm-hmm.
the writing utensil extends what humanness for you?
The memory.
Yeah. Now, have you attended any Finnegan's Wake reading clubs?
No, and I've joined the Finnegan's Wake Society of New York, and I'm subscribed to their email threads, but I've never been to any of their events, but I hope to soon. So, shout out to them.
Yeah, because I go to the New York Finnegan's Wake Reading Club. It's on Zoom. It's every other Wednesday.
Yeah.
And then I have one in Venice, and I recommend my friends in Austin, Texas. And the best one is in Dublin at Sweeney's Pharmacy, and that's online every Tuesday. It's 11 a.m. Pacific time. And that's the best one because we just read Finnegan's Wake out loud for an hour, and then we have sort of minor discussion. Whereas most every Finnegan's Wake reading club across the world, over 50 of them, will take maybe one page or a half a page and discuss it for 2 hours. Yeah. And so the Sweeney's group is interesting because people just wander into this. You know what Sweeney's Pharmacy is?
No.
It's the drugstore where the protagonist in Ulysses walks in and buys lemon soap.
Okay.
So it's a tourist trap, sort of. It's like a Joycean tourist trap in Dublin, but they have some amazing Joyce related reading groups out of there. So people wander in there and they don't always know what they're getting into, and they say, hey, we're reading a Joyce book here, why don't you join in and read?
Yeah.
Whereas most people in Finnegan's Wake reading clubs know what they're getting into.
Right. Yeah, and I think that lines up with the experience I was just describing to you with those gentlemen, downstairs.
Yeah,
I'm glad you said this. I'm glad you brought this whole thing up because going into this interview, I've been thinking about a lot. You've been a part of some prolific, Finnegan's Wake reading groups. To the point, I saw an article in the L.A. Times that was written about you, right?
yeah.
So I've come to think of you in the lead up to this as in some way like a master of the collaborative
More,
approach.
more like a student, but yeah, go ahead.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but of the collaborative approach
Yeah.
to Finnegan's Wake. And that's something I think, what's interesting about this is there's the whole coincidence of opposites thing in Finnegan's Wake, right? My experience has been the opposite, but there's definitely, we can find incredible amounts of convergences, which is that I've spent more than a decade completely like immersed in this text by myself with nobody else.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, I've been really excited about this just to see how those two things, fit together.
But when you read it, do you read it out loud?
Yeah.
You sit in your room and read it out loud.
Yeah.
Wow. By yourself, no one else?
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you know?
A few years ago, I went through a whole, not just Finnegan's Wake, I did a whole program that I put myself through where I recited what I consider basically the Western canon to myself. Mostly translations, of course. So the Old Testament and Homer, the Iliad and the Odyssey, and then the Aeneid, and then all of Ovid, and then the Divine Comedy. And I've been meaning to do Shakespeare, but I don't do this. I don't record it. You know what I mean? I really do it as an exercise for the sake of cultivating that linguistic power.
Right, but all out loud.
All out loud. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something. We were talking about Eastern religion, but I've engaged a lot more with the Kabbalah because it's a lot of that goes into Finnegan's Wake, and there's a kind of way that the Kabbalists say that one should pray, and it's out loud, but as quietly as you can, out loud without whispering, and that's how I recite.
Out loud, as quiet, without whisper. Yeah.
Yeah. And with
Really?
Finnegan's Wake in particular, the way that it's just the falling and the rising of your voice will give you just a delightful sensation,
Pretty amazing. Yeah. Luke, I asked for 90 minutes. We're almost there, and I hope we can do a part 2 so we can get deeper into Joyce and
I'd love to do a part 2.
more specifically into poetry, because I want to talk about what's the function of poetry. And I love that you brought up humor, because I think McLuhan's line, and I appreciated you including McLuhan in your article because it is rare that happens. Have you read much McLuhan?
I want to read more McLuhan. I've really got, I read you'll know the name of it. What is his series of essays that he wrote, or letters, when he converted to Catholicism? Something in light, the medium and the light, I think it's called.
The Medium and the Light is his writings on religion. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. I read The Medium and the Light, but I haven't read much else.
Yeah.
That's one of those people that is just basically made for me, so I don't know why I haven't read more of them.
You might check McLuhan's New Sciences. New Sciences. It's a website. Yeah, it's Cameron's. So it's hard to get McLuhan. He's a poet and a politician, and he's teased. Well, the 2 McLuhan lines I'll give you is Donald Thiel, one of his students, said, McLuhan teases us to believe his percepts are concepts. So he's in academia and he's writing books. So he's supposed to be putting across concepts.
Yeah.
But he's not. He's putting he's guessing and intuiting, and he's doing what he learned from Mallarmé in The Symbolist, who's the other. In order to get McLuhan, he said, you have to know all of Joyce and all of The Symbolist. So
Yeah.
the symbolists got their chops from Edgar Allan Poe, which
Mm-hmm.
is called effects precede causes, reasoning backwards. You don't, like Mallarmé, and then Poe spawned the symbolist. Mallarmé says you don't paint the painting, you paint the effect you want the painting to have.
Right.
So that's
Right.
Kurt Cobain, Patti Smith, Bob Dylan, Jim Morrison. They're all symbolist freaks. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter what they say, it's how they make you want to feel. So
Right.
then you do what Poe did with the detective novel. I'm only going to give you so much information, and then you're going to get involved in my art because you're going to go, I know what's going to happen. So that's what you know McLuhan's learning in Cambridge from the new criticism guys. You might
Yeah.
study them a lot. And then what Marshall said about Joyce, he said he uses the pun as a way of seeing the paradoxical exuberance of being through language.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of packed in there, and we can study it more. It's like the main thing I learned from Frank Zappa, who listed James Joyce as an influence on his first album,
Yeah.
saying, he taught me how to embrace contradiction. So you just said it by saying coincidence of opposites,
Yeah. Yeah. The
So,
coincidentia oppositorum, they call
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can think about language or words like you have a glass of water and every word is like a little drop of coloring that goes into that glass. And if you think, like you said, the effect, you think about the color that you want to make, you have to choose the drops very carefully.
Yeah.
There's a story I'm sure you're familiar with, somebody telling Joyce at a certain point that they have a series of words for him for the wake, and he looked at the words and then he looked at the guy and he just told the guy, I can't use them. And
Yeah.
the guy at that moment had a realization that there was some like dark principles behind this whole chaos that the guy had no insight into.
It's a heavy thing. And the whole backstory in Joyce writing the wake is another whole thing.
Hmm.
But Luke, I really appreciate your time and energy. I learned a lot, and I really hope we can plan a part 2 and
Yeah, I'd love
carry.
to play. Let's do it.
Yeah. So thanks again. I'm going to hit the end broadcast button now, but I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever. Thank you so much, Luke.
River Run.
Yeah, I like that.